You need a manager who can both grow with the club, but also you need a manager that can deal with the squad right now and improve them. We need to talk about Steve Bruce because it's over, isn't it? He's gone. He has, isn't he? It's as simple as that. And so with that, we need to look forward. We need to get ourselves ready for the new manager of Newcastle United. In this video, I'm going to dive into Steve Bruce's time at Newcastle United, my feelings on both his tenure and I guess maybe his exit. We're going to have a look at a list of new managers. I looked at different articles, and there is a million different articles on different managers that are in the running for this job. So who is the right man for, or woman, for Newcastle United at this stage? And finally, I want to talk about the narrative that I think that is going to be put towards Newcastle in this next season, between now and the end of this season. Because what I see is, and I spoke about this in the last video, look, we're all hypocrites when it comes to being football fans. And me as a QPR fan, I went through a takeover with lots of money where a team was not good enough and a load of money was wheeled in to try and get away with it, basically. And so how that played out, I'm going to reveal that a little bit later on in the video as well. So first of all, let's have a look at Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce is gone. It's over. Worst kept secret in football. I mean, the big question here with a lot of it is, how did he last so long? One thing that I do think he deserves a touch of credit for is the players used. So 96 matches at Newcastle, 29 wins, 25 draws, 42 losses. That's obviously not good enough. I think we always need to remember the context of being a manager of a team with a poor squad. And it is a poor squad. I don't think I've ever deviated from that. And he's been able to keep them up. When there's the pressure that is on someone like Steve Bruce at a club like Newcastle United, for him not to crumble and for the team not to crumble, where in previous seasons they have, they've been relegated twice, there is an element of achievement in that. The fact that he was able to get them over the line, it confused us all, it bemused us all, but he did do it. He did do it. So I think that is worth stating. Yes, it was dire football. Of course it was. Yes, he should have gone before that. Of course. But in terms of keeping the club in the Premier League, which is all that the owner wanted in Mike Ashley at the time, he did succeed when it came to that remit. And the fact that he only used 40 players because he wasn't able to change it as much as he probably would have wanted. That's the thing. I think you got to use human nature in a lot of this, right? And you've got to remember the perception of Steve Bruce that Steve Bruce has. Now, this will happen to everyone in life, right? The older you get, people start to see you differently. You don't see yourself differently. Steve Bruce was captain of every team he basically played for. He was captain of Manchester United when they won the title for the first time. This is a leader of men. And as a manager, if we go back to it, he's had an okay career, The problem you have sometimes, you almost need to do well to look bad, right? I think Villas-Boas said that, which I thought was quite interesting. When Marseille got to the Champions League, they were then seen as a bit of a joke because they were struggling in the Champions League, but they weren't expected to get in the Champions League at that time. And that's sometimes the problem for a lot of managers who take teams up from the Championship, go into the Premier League, and then all of a sudden they're terrible managers. And you then look at the stats, and it backs it up, doesn't it? It kind of goes, oh, well, hang on a minute, he's not got many points, therefore he's not Jurgen Klopp. Now, I'm not saying he is Jurgen Klopp, but what I am saying is that these numbers are unfair a lot of the time. You have a poorer squad than the other teams in the league a lot of the time. And look, we can get into the minutiae of it all and the money that he spent for these different teams at different times. And he should have done better at different places, right? Sure. But he also has had a solid career as a manager. Now, I would like that to be known for the record. Should he have left Newcastle United a lot sooner? Absolutely. Absolutely. But he was in a difficult situation. And I think, aside from Rafa Benitez, any other manager coming in, I think it would have struggled, right? Now, the style of play, terrible. Should he have gone sooner? As I've said previously, absolutely. He should have gone sooner. But what happened here was, I think, when we're talking about, say, the perception of himself, I think a delusion turned into an element of bitterness, right? This is the guy who was a Newcastle United fan, wanted to manage his club. These are all, I think, fair feelings to have, right? And especially at the end of his career, to take that opportunity, he felt like he had to take it. It obviously wasn't working, and Newcastle fans didn't want him. He's got those ties with Sunderland as well, and that plays a part in all of this. And any other owner at some stage would have pulled the plug. He would have gone. There would have been a new manager, and it would have been forgotten about. The problem is you have a manager then who believes he can turn it around or keep it moving forwards and upwards. Because of all of what I've said there, this is someone who's managed a hell of a lot of football games. Prior to that was a leader of men. And then you've got a situation where the fans kind of hate him for it, and it leads to him then going, okay, well, what am I going to do here? Am I just going to walk away? Which makes Mike Ashley get what he wants again, which is him to walk away. He doesn't have to pay him off. Again, I think these are real like human issues, right? That for him to just walk away, I think initially would have shown that he was someone who quits. And name me another example where the manager's gone, the fans aren't feeling it at the moment. For the best of everyone, I'm just going to walk away. It doesn't work like that. The owner sees that, goes, yep, I agree with this, and then that the manager gets the elbow. So it's a very unique and strange position that Steve Bruce found himself in. And I think it got to a point where he was happy to leave. He would have been happy to leave. But he was kind of like, well, hang on a minute. I've gone through all this just to walk away without the payout. And look, people can go, oh, money, like you can't. It shouldn't be about money. You should have more respect for yourself. Like, come on. Like, do you think anyone's really going to do that? I think that's slightly naive to think that he would have walked away a little bit sooner. Personally, I just think both through his, as I say, his delusion of feeling that he could have fixed it, and being a football man, right? Whatever that means. I just think that he was never going to walk. He was never going to walk. And so as he walks away, here's a question for all of you. Do you have sympathy and respect for Steve Bruce as he leaves Newcastle United? I've got sympathy for him. I'm not sure I've got that much respect for the way that it's ended. Just because it should have ended sooner. And I think there's been moments where he could have been a little bit more transparent in what he was saying to the players. And do I have respect for the style of play that team played? Again, it was incredibly negative, lacked a plan at times. So in terms of general respect for him as a manager, he obviously leaves this job with less credit in the bank than he did going into it, having had, as I say, a really, really solid career as a manager. I might be wrong on that. Newcastle United fans, you know your club better than me. So if I'm wrong on that, so be it. But from looking from the outside in, I think it's one of those where he should have gone. He should have been disposed with. But if you're the person in the eye of the storm, you have two decisions. You kind of go, I walk away, and you feel like you're a quitter. Or you stick it out. So the next question is, what do you do now? Who's the new manager? I've seen so many different stories with so many different managers. These are the current odds, the current favourites for the job. I've seen stories about Lucien Favre. I've heard talk about Antonio Conte, Roberto Martinez. Roberto Martinez, of course, worked with Graham Jones. Graham Jones is a coach who's worked with England, worked with Roberto Martinez, and came into Newcastle recently. So it looks like he could well be a stopgap for the next few games at least, until they get sorted out with the person that they want. But there's a long list of names here, and it is really interesting. And again, another question for you guys. Let me know who the manager you would want. Brendan Rodgers is the current favourite, which I find fascinating. Steven Gerrard up there as well. Eddie Howe, Graham Potter, Graham Jones, as we've spoken about. Frank Lampard in quite a few different news stories. Zinedine Zidane, Rafa Benitez to leave Everton, Paulo Fonseca, Jose Mourinho to come back. I think that's one that a lot of people have kind of, over the years, have liked the idea of. Southgate, not going to happen, is it? Xavi would be very, very interesting. Andre Villas-Boas, Andre Pirlo, Rudy Garcia, Ralph Ragnick, and Chris Wilder, and where on earth is Alan Kirbishley? Oh, good enough. Look, Villas-Boas is in there twice. So we've got all these options here. Here's what I think, right? You've got a problem. you've got a problem with this because the narrative that will be around Newcastle, let me warn you now, okay, is think of the extremes. This is how media works now. The extremes of clubs is the fact that it's like, can they win the title? Will they win the Champions League? Will they get relegated? The thing that's the most available to people right now is Newcastle to get relegated. That will be the story that will excite journalists the most. And we'll see a kind of funneling with defeats towards that idea of like, surely not with all this money, Newcastle can get relegated. But just brace yourselves. If you're a Newcastle fan, that is the story that people will be looking to go to as quickly as possible. So when it comes to the manager, what you have here, and so as a QPR fan, we had it the season we stayed up. The Aguero season was our first season. We'd had this big buyout. We had all these new players coming through the door right in the last few seconds of, I can't remember if it was January or I think it might have been. Was it January? I can't remember. Anyway, I think it was both transfer windows, right? And you had all these players coming in. And basically what happened was, in that season, we basically had a load of players come through who just about helped us creep over the line. But it was horrible, really. There was a massive mix or disconnect between these players that weren't good enough and these players that were, or certainly had this sort of big name status within the game. And it was really clunky. And we just about got away with it. Add to that, the story that was there was that, wow, they're spending all this money and they could still go down. The next season, we made even more changes and it got even worse and we ended up going down. So, cautionary tale that Newcastle United will need to kind of get around because it doesn't happen overnight. Of course it doesn't happen overnight. So with that in mind, you've got to get the right manager that can get the best out of this team now. Has this team been coached to a level that's getting the absolute maximum out of them? The Saint maximum out of them? No, is the answer. I just don't think that has been the case, right? Can they be inspired to play better, be inspired to play a higher level of football? Yes. But if you bring in a manager like Antonio Conte at this stage, it's a little bit dangerous, Or a manager that doesn't know the league in terms of Lucien Favre. Ralph Ragnick is being put forward as a director of football. I saw his name here as well. So there's a lot of names here that if you want to get them involved, then great. What it means is that you need to go big in January. You need to go big in January. Especially, I guess you need to see how the team's getting on at that point and where they are in the league. But with the situation as it is now and the renewed kind of vigour that teams playing Newcastle will have, because they will want to beat Newcastle United now, because it's you say Newcastle United differently now because of everything that's happened. You then need a manager who can both grow with the club, but also you need a manager that can deal with the squad right now and improve them. With that in mind, there are some hard decisions to be made, because you've got Brendan Rodgers, who's the favourite right now. And this is interesting. This is a manager that is very ambitious, has looked to make those moves, and has been linked with an Arsenal or, Spurs jobs in the past. This is a little bit different. So if you're asking me, if I've got a blank checkbook, which they have, the money I would spend it on first is, of course, there's some players to go and get to improve the squad. Players like, just a quick thought on that is someone like Jesse Lingard is a perfect player for similar reasons. It's a player who has that quality, can come in and hit the ground running, knows the league, but also can grow with the squad as they look to add player after player after player. When it comes to managers, I think there's a reason why Brendan Rodgers is right at the top for a couple of reasons. One, wonderful manager, develops players, will be good in terms of his recruitment, will make the squad that's there right now better, is able to win games with a squad and develop them, but also can grow, wants that big job, has a high level of ambition, and has walked away for the better job in the past. And I've got to say, I expect that those conversations are happening right now, because that is the safest bet you'll get for Newcastle United right now. And I think they can go and get him. I think they can. And I really wouldn't be surprised if I saw that, if it was Brendan Rodgers. Steven Gerrard, that's a really kind of scary job for him to go into. Roberto Martinez, I think that's the Graham Jones link and factor there, which is interesting. I guess with a World Cup and all the work that he's done with Belgium, for him to walk away now would be interesting, but sometimes maybe you've got to kind of take an opportunity like the Newcastle United job when it's available to you. Lucien Favre, as I say, with that squad, maybe he can coach them to get enough out of them, but I guess you've got to kind of be able to inspire them as well. Is he able to do that? Possibly. I don't know him well enough. But I would feel like it was more of a risk than Brendan Rodgers. Eddie Howe, I mean, it would be a dream job for him, an interesting one for him to take. Potter, for him to make the move, who knows? Lampard, I mean, for a manager to, I say, win the lottery, to have the job at Chelsea when, you know, he's got it because he's a legend, to then get the job at Newcastle, again, feels very, very dangerous. Rafa Benitez is a very safe choice, but will he leave Everton? So many different options right now. But if it's me, I go for Brendan Rodgers, and I go for him quickly. I don't mess about. I spend the money. I get him in the hot seat because I think he is the best option for them right now. And Leicester City fans will, of course, be fuming at it because you've got a project there that continues to grow with a team and a club that is very, very smart in its approach. But also they've had a manager with the X factor. I do believe that Brendan Rodgers has that X factor. But he's always been very, very ambitious, and I would not be surprised if he made his way to Newcastle very, very quickly. Because I think when he sees those kind of, you know, all the ingredients that you need, unlimited budget, great fan base, incredible stadium, and all those changes that are going to happen for both sides, that the ownership will go, okay, we've got something we can maybe lean on here a little bit in terms of seeing what's been done in terms of a well-run club. Just tell us what to do and we'll do it. And then on the other side of it, Brendan Rodgers going, these guys open the doors for what I want to be as a manager, which is one that wins numerous trophies and fights for Champions Leagues. So for me, it's there to be had. But who knows what will happen. I guess between now and the end of the season is such a... Precarious isn't the word, because long term they're going to be absolutely fine, Newcastle United, of course. But they don't want to go backwards. And between now and January, they need to get through a tricky period with a very average squad. It's going to be very, very interesting. And, of course, increased pressure. So there you have it, guys. My thoughts on Steve Bruce and the new manager. If you're new to the channel, please do consider hitting the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and check out all the cracking content that we've got on the channel. Dream Team is a really good series. Go and check that out if you're looking for a video to enjoy. And I'll see you next time.